Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you from the WELT studios. Hello, Justin.
Hello, Caleb Hatch.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You know, it's weird. It's early October, and yet we're still almost pushing 90 degrees in the coming days here in Fort Wayne, which is like not normal.
Not normal. I talked to my wife today. She, our little one, Morrison, had one of his therapies at the park today, and she's like, I'm over this 80s degrees. She loves fall, too, so she's like, can we get the fall weather? It sounds like it's coming next week. We keep having little stints of it, and then it warms back up. So, you know, in January, February, we'll be begging for 80.
Yes.
So I'll take it.
Here's my thing about fall. People love the idea of fall. They don't love the actual execution of fall, which is like you got about 2 weeks of fall-like weather.
Right. And half of those days are like
rainy.
Like drizzly, overcloud. Like, that's not fun.
No.
So.
And then November is just literally drizzly and overcast.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole month.
Pretty much. I agree. People like their pumpkin spice lattes and their
apple picking sweaters.
Apple picking and the leaves changing colors and falling off and all that stuff. Some people enjoy raking. We do not.
No. We're rake-free on this podcast.
Yes, but yeah, the idea of fall, I agree with you. The idea of fall is better than actual fall.
Which is unfortunate because like that 10 to 14 day window of what you think of actual fall is great.
It just doesn't last long.
That's all we get here.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's coming, but we have plenty of time to wait for IndyCar to return, fall and winter.
Yeah.
Before we get back on track, at least in competition. But we had some on-track activity this week.
We did. And coming soon, in under about a 10-day window, we'll have Mick Schumacher doing a test with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. Plus, we'll talk about that test at Mid-Ohio as we recorded this on Thursday afternoon, so that was Wednesday afternoon. Other silly season news and nuggets, a change for Leader Circle, positive change at that, also coming. We'll get to all that ahead. Let's start there with the Schumacher news. That actually, of course, dropped right after we had recorded, I think, the following day. But nonetheless, this is a pretty big deal. It's always been a rumor with Mick Schumacher in terms of, what if he tries IndyCar? What if he does a test? And it's always kind of like, he might do that if that's his only option. But for the first time, he's going to do it. It's not just a seat fitting, but this is a full-on test with Rahal coming up at the IMS Road Course, which if you're in a Rahal car, the IMS Road Course, that's probably a good place to start, as it'll come on October 13th. So that is going to be next? I'm bad at dates here. Is that next 2 Mondays from now?
October 13th? Yes.
So
13th. Coming
soon. So we'll have a bit of a gap between this episode and the test. But this seems like a legitimate test. In fact, the race site said that if all goes well, I mean, this is legitimately an option for him in 2026.
Yeah, I think Marshall Pruitt said there are no commitments beyond the test. Both sides are hopeful this will lead to a bigger opportunity in 2026. Does that mean a potential seat in that 30 car for Rahal Letterman Lanigan? Does it mean that they would like him to do road and street courses in 2026? Do they want to lay the groundwork now, bring him back for another test sometime next year and look towards 2027? I don't know. But first things first, Mick Schumacher will be on the road course and drive a IndyCar for the first time. First IndyCar test ever for Mick Schumacher. It will mean something to him, too, with his father having raced on the road course as well at Indianapolis in Formula One. So we'll see how it goes.
Do you feel like this is something that will actually happen?
No.
In terms of him racing full-time or even at all in IndyCar in 26?
I'll say this. I don't think it leads to a full-time ride with Rahal Letterman Lanigan in 2026.
I would agree.
I just feel like Mick Schumacher is in a more of a position in his career that he doesn't have to settle for the third car at Rahal Letterman Lanigan, which is, sorry to say, is uncompetitive. I mean, he's been in WEC, right, for the last couple years.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously been a reserve driver with Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, test driver with Haas and Alfa Romeo at the time. I mean, he's kind of been across the board. Yes, he's got some starts in F1, not a whole lot to run off of, though. It's kind of like he's at the point in his career where, okay, you're either going to get back in an F1 seat or you're going to be stuck as a reserve or test driver and then race in WEC or something like that.
Yeah, and he's done that. He's done, like you said, being the reserve driver for Mercedes last year. Not a reserve driver, I don't think, for anybody this year. It just feels like I think RLL is more hopeful that it works out than maybe Mick Schumacher is. And who knows, maybe he's just desperate to get back into open wheel racing. I don't know. It's just that's not a competitive seat. And until proven otherwise, it's not a competitive seat. And I feel like Mick Schumacher has had enough of a career. And I know people will say, well, he wasn't that good in Formula One. Well, he was racing for Haas when it was absolutely terrible in 21 and 22, right? So I just feel like the name recognition alone, I feel, earns him the benefit of the doubt, I guess. I just, everything would have to go super, super well for this to turn into something for 2026.
The positive is he was at the Indy 500 back in May and kind of, making introductions, as Marshall Pruitt said on Racer.com on a story. So there is interest. Does that mean this happens? I don't know. I want to think it could happen, but I feel like this opportunity for IndyCar has been there for a few years now, and he hasn't really taken it.
But I do think that maybe Mick Schumacher is looking at it and saying, if I can knock out this test, maybe not even for 2026, but does it open a couple doors for 2027 with a better team? That's what I'm looking at from Mick Schumacher's perspective, is maybe this is what it's for. Obviously to get into an IndyCar, obviously run on a track that his dad raced on, and then continue maybe that push for a better seat. But the third seat at RLL for Mick Schumacher, I just don't see it as realistic. I think RLL would love to have him in that seat.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I just don't think Mick Schumacher is going to settle for that seat.
Yeah, and I guess that's the ultimate question in all of this is, a test is one thing. I mean, look, we saw Logan Sargent do a seat fitting with, I can't remember if it was Foyt or Coyne, and then he got an F2 opportunity, obviously parlayed that into F1, out of F1, and he retired from racing, then came back, and then he's doing sports cars. So, I mean, IndyCar not really on the radar, but, I mean, race car drivers, they know people in other series. They have a clue what's going on. So, sure. At least at a minimum, it's on his radar, which I think this is good publicity for IndyCar, whether he, races in the series or not. A test, I think, is interesting just to have that on the radar.
I think the coolest thing when doing research on Mick Schumacher, and I didn't realize this, is when he was in karting, he would not race with his last name. He would go by Mick Jr.
That's awesome.
Or Mick Betch, because he didn't want to be A, the hype, and two, maybe he wanted to prove himself and not just fall back on his famous surname, right? So I thought that was pretty cool. Is eventually the press started picking up on who Mick Betch was in karting, but didn't race by the name Mick Schumacher in karting.
Which, a lot of respect for that.
Yeah,
I mean, you could just rely on your last name and get, whether it's good treatment or bad treatment, it kind of depends. Everyone's kind of out to get you from that standpoint. You're more anonymous, which I think is going to help you. But we'll see how this test goes. I'm interested to see what happens, because I think this is a notable off-season thing for IndyCar when it comes to tests. I mean, we have tests like we saw on Wednesday every year in the offseason, but this is a little bit different.
Look, IndyCar would be very much benefited by having Mick Schumacher on the grid. No doubt, regardless if he's in a competitive seat or uncompetitive seat. But I think if you're Mick Schumacher, you want to be in a competitive seat or reasonably competitive, right? Unfortunately, that's one of the worst seats on the grid. And that's not just purposely being mean. It absolutely is one of the worst cars on the grid. So I just don't see Mick Schumacher as settling for that. But if there's any way that IndyCar, ROL, or maybe in 2027, another team that has been more successful turns to Mick Schumacher and says, you were great in that test in 2025. Maybe he has another test or two in 2026 and proves enough. Then maybe he's on the grid in 2027. I think it's phenomenal for the series. But first things first, this needs to go well for him, needs to go well for Rahal Letterman Lanigan and see where it leads.
And also, he kind of has a potential gap year coming up. So he raced with Alpine in WEC. There was speculation he was going to join Team Jota, Cadillac squad, now linked to McLaren, which is going to join Hypercar in 2027. So
yeah,
does he use it as a stopgap year? And also, how strong is his desire to return to open wheel racing? Because this might be, outside of being a reserve driver in F1, his last good shot.
Potentially. You make a great point about that gap year, and he's had the last 2 years in hypercars since leaving Formula One. So who knows what that could mean. And maybe it's just, hey, it's not ideal, but Mick is saying I'd rather be in a car than not in a car in 2026. So could be something. I will be surprised if it happens, though.
I will too. All in all, though, good off-season fodder for us on the podcast to have that bit of news and discuss. So we go from Mick Schumacher, an upcoming test, to a test that we had the other day. And normally, these tests aren't that notable, but this one was for, unfortunately, some of the wrong reasons. You had several drivers, including guys who had participated in Indy Lights in the last year. Felipe Nasr also participating, who's with Porsche Penske Motorsport. But Caio Collet testing for AJ Foyt Racing, which I have said since I think around Nashville, I thought that would be a potential landing spot for him. I mean, he's going to bring some budget, and if it's enough, and he showed well at the test, he was fastest, that could be his seat. In fact, it feels like it's his seat to lose with Foyt. Felipe Nasr's had this kind of test outing several times. Dennis Hauger also testing with Coin during the test. And then Kakunoshin Kaku Ota, who is racing in Japanese Super Formula and kind of feels like Honda's potential hand-picked Takuma Sato replacement.
Either also, in IndyCar or IMSA.
Yeah, also took place in the test. And Niels Kulin, who is with Chip Ganassi Racing's Lights team. Unfortunately, throughout this test, carnage was really the takeaway. In fact, several drivers crashed not once, but twice. Hauger crashed early. Felipe Nasr as well. Basically, everyone crashed except for Caio Collet. So, not what you would expect to see on a routine test, but that's where we're at. And I think it shows quite well that he was able to do that.
Very much so, and he's somebody that maybe even I kind of wrote off as being a potential seat filler for 2026 season, but Caio Collet, at least during the test this week, running uneventfully all day, turned out to be a positive compared to everybody else. I'm really fascinated, though, with Kaku, because we've mentioned it several times about the need for IndyCar to have the next Takuma Sato. And I think not only a Japanese driver, but a Honda-supported Japanese driver. And if Honda does stick around, I definitely could see Kaku Ota being the next big thing in IndyCar from Japan.
I could as well. I mean, he's shown well in Super Formula, which is, we've seen Alex Palou come from Super Formula. It's kind of thought of like the Eastern version of IndyCar in terms of the global open wheel motorsport, arrangement. It's a very well thought of series. He has shown well. He's won 3 races last season in that. So this could potentially be the guy, because it didn't feel like there was anyone else really in the pipeline to maybe come to IndyCar. And if Honda wants a Japanese driver in the series, which I think they would, Ota could be that guy.
And with his relationship with Meyer Shank, that has an IMSA team and an IndyCar team, I think that relationship with MSR is advantageous for Kaku because he can go either direction, right? And I think it's very important. It's a storyline to watch because it could give an indication, and we're always looking for indications on what Honda is going to do, whether it stays or goes. If Kaku goes in the direction of IndyCar in the near future, that would be a good sign that potentially Honda's sticking around. Conversely, if he goes the IMSA direction, that may be an indication that he's not, that Honda is set to leave IndyCar. So I think it's a storyline to watch for various reasons, but when you break it down, this series is magnified in the Far East when it has a Japanese driver on track full time. We've all seen how the Japanese media gravitates toward Indianapolis when Takuma Sato is racing, but to have that a constant presence through the entire season would be great.
So we look at silly season stuff. Obviously, Kyle Collette, if the budget's there, that number 4 AJ Foyt entry is probably his. You get to the other Junko seat, the other Coin seat, and then whatever happens with the 30 Rahal car, which we don't think will be Devlin DeFrancesco. And that's really where we're at in terms of full-time entries. And the latest nuggets in the Racer.com mailbag from Marshall Pruitt. Another update on Prema. Few team owners have heard the entire Prema team is for sale, but no one's been contacted about it, so Pruitt is skeptical. Look, until we see anything, I'm also skeptical. Like, I get that they're looking for funding, but I mean, I just don't see them making that big of an investment in making obvious strides throughout the season and then just pulling out in a flash. I don't see that happening. And then you get to go ahead.
Real quick, is it weird that we haven't, and maybe I missed it, an official announcement that Devlin DeFrancesco isn't returning to ROL?
It just depends on how the contract works.
I mean, because we've all heard that there's performance clauses, blah, blah, blah. I mean, could Devlin DeFrancesco potentially be back in that seat if ROL doesn't get maybe a potential couple drivers that it's targeting?
I don't see why not. I mean, look, it's a chartered entry, so I mean, unless you're gonna sell it, you have to fill the seat. Yeah,
and maybe if it's like, hey, Devlin, your plan D, if A, B, and C strike out, you're back up, kind of thing, which could potentially be a possibility because we've never just officially heard that Devlin DeFrancesco is gone. We've heard rumors that he's going to be replaced due to performance clauses, but not that Devlin has not come out and said, I'm not returning, and ROL has not come out and said, Devlin is not returning. So
unless his contract runs through a certain time period, which I would think that would already be over based on the schedule, but granted, Will Power's contract
Will Power about that. But at
runs
least
to the end of the year.
You would think. So
yes.
At this point, don't be surprised if Devlin is back in that seat, I guess.
I think they're going to do their due diligence in terms of searching for other drivers. But look, the reality is he brings a ton of money to the table. And as long as that check clears, they have someone for that seat. And they do have a contract. Now, if he didn't meet that, maybe Rahal has the opportunity to look for other drivers, but there's a certain deadline. Could that be the end of the year? Who knows? I mean,
conversely, on the other side, RLL could be like, we're trying to find more money for sponsorship. If we don't find it, we may have to bring Devlin back to finance. So
yeah,
both sides. I don't think it's as cut and dry as saying that seat's open. I think there's some things that need to happen, or Devlin's going to be back in that seat.
And then the other thing that's clearly not cut and dry is Rinus VeeKay, who left Dale Coyne Racing. Said he wasn't coming back. That happened right after the Nashville weekend, but it seemed like it was
caught us all by surprise
based on what they had done. And then now with Dennis Hauger there and the technical alliance with Andretti Global, seems like a missed opportunity. And Pruitt had this to say: VeeKay was targeting end of 2026 open market by going to Juncos for a year instead of signing a multi-year deal with Coyne. Remember, though, this has gone from him leaving Coyne to all signs saying it was all but a lock for him to go to Foyt. But then Malukas switched to Penske, which was expected, but then we've heard no renewal of the Penske-Foyt partnership, which I'm not sure if that is getting renewed. Sounds like it may not. To now, he's on the outs again. I mean, look, I understand that there are going to be a lot of drivers available after 2026. I mean, in fact, Dale Coyne himself said, it's going to be a pretty quiet, silly season. 2026 is going to be the big one, and we've actually had more movement than I think anyone would have guessed. But now it just feels like, does VeeKay actually have something lined up? Because if he did, A, it would have already been announced. B, it wouldn't feel like there's some scrambling going on. Because remember, 2 weeks ago, it was like, it'll be announced this coming week. Well, it's obviously been several weeks since then.
Is this a case of a driver overplaying his hand?
It feels like it.
Because we raved about Rinus VeeKay through the 2025 season and what he did with Coyne. He has been as consistent can be, Caleb. In his 6 seasons in IndyCar, he has finished between 12th and 14th in points all 6 seasons.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty consistent.
Considering you're not racing for Penske, Ganassi, right, McLaren, or Andretti, that's pretty good.
We know his abilities qualifying at the Indianapolis 500. Maybe a cause for concern is he has 5 of his 6 starts outside of last year have been in the top 7, of course, all with Ed Carpenter Racing. And yet he doesn't have a finish higher than 8th in the Indianapolis 500. So I like Rinus VeeKay. I do, but is this was this a play thinking that there was going to be more of a market for his services than there actually was? And why wouldn't you just tell Dale Coyne, I'll come back, I just want a 1-year deal, and hit the market at the end of 2026?
Which, was he not signed with Coyne on a 1-year deal for this past season?
Why not just do another 1-year deal? The fact that, per Marshall Pruitt, he was focusing on the end of 2026, then the mayhem that could be silly season a year from now, you got to race in 2026 first, don't you? And he kind of maybe felt that there was going to be more out there. Maybe the AJ Foyt deal was all but done, and then the rug gets pulled out from under that deal due to Penske pulling its funding. I don't know, but all of a sudden, Rinus VeeKay is in a bad spot for a dude that felt like, and I think you and I can agree, another good season with Coyne, and he is one of the more desired free agent drivers in next year's silly season. Now, either he's going to be in a backmarker car or it could be off the grid.
The other thing that's interesting is, remember, so Todd Alt of BitNile and Ask ROI and those companies, he had his legal dispute with Ed Carpenter Racing and left, and then comes over and sponsors VeeKay at Coyne, and then decides, hey, we're going to kind of up our partnership with Dale Coyne. Coyne's expanding his shop, doubling, I think, the space in the Chicago suburbs, really investing in the team. And Todd Alt obviously liked VeeKay to come over and be a sponsor last year, and it seemed like, okay, he's got a good setup. And then VeeKay leaves, it's almost like, okay, so you had something good going. You had a sponsor who wanted to support you. So now, not only is the fact that you're leaving Coyne, but also the sponsor who basically put you on the grid last year is gone as well. It's another factor. It's like, okay, so he brings his results, which were quite good, granted, this past season, but unless he's going to Rahal in the DeFrancesco entry, if the way that contract is apparently worded, I mean, otherwise, is there a chance he goes back to Coyne? Because that's still his best option. I don't think that's an option now, because it feels like he burned that bridge. My fear in all of this for him is that his best option is going to be an Indy 500 only seat. Now, granted, the Tryon Reinbold entry for the 500, you could argue that's better than a full-time Juncos ride, or even a Rahal ride, because the Rahal ride is not going to be competitive in the 500 unless they somehow turn things around.
I still think you'd rather be on the grid full time, yes, especially for a guy that's in the prime of his career right now at 25 years old. It just kind of feels like a situation where a driver felt like what he did with Coyne was more eye-opening to the paddock than maybe it really was. And maybe also felt like I did everything I possibly could at Coyne in 1 year. I have to turn this into something. But it just kind of felt like you mentioned, his best play was to come back to Coyne that has as much momentum as it has, what would you say, in 7-8 years?
Yeah, really, I'd say going back to 2019.
And following up in 2026, maybe potentially getting a win. I mean, he finished second at Toronto, but a couple more podiums, maybe put together a good May in Indianapolis 500 and see what the silly season next year brings. But now we know how this goes. Once you fall out of full-time racing in IndyCar, it is very difficult to get back in full-time. So the fallback may be an extra car in May, but you'd much prefer to be on the radar every week, every race, and proving yourself, because obviously that's more beneficial going forward. So I don't know. You know, on the outside looking in, you look at what is Rinus VeeKay doing. Maybe some things we don't know was it was all set at Foyt and it fell apart and now he's screwed. But if that's the case, you should then be able to go back to Coyne, you would think, unless, like you said, it was not an amicable separation between the two.
So that's a look at what's happening in terms of open seats. We have Mick Schumacher doing a test, obviously Rinus VeeKay, Devlin DeFrancesco, is he in that seat or not? Kyle Collette potentially at Foyt. I mean, that's 4 drivers. We're talking, what, 3 seats?
Yeah, I mean, who is it? Niels Colin?
Yeah, I mean, he's with Ganassi in there for lights, so that's just the I think teams get evaluation test days
for
lights drivers. In fact, Andretti Global is going to also test the IMS Road Course on October 13th with Loki Hughes, and then other tests set to come up according to Marshall Pruitt. Enzo Fittipaldi, younger brother of Pietro Fittipaldi, who is back with in F1 as a sim driver for Cadillac F1. In fact, more on Cadillac F1 later on in the episode. But Enzo Fittipaldi going to run with Arrow McLaren at Sebring. Or in fact, he raced at Sebring, or did a test day at Sebring with Arrow McLaren, set to be back with him as well. So a couple other tests on the table. But we're getting down to the point we didn't think we'd be this way. There's just a handful of people fighting over a handful of seats, and it wouldn't shock me if we have most of this wrapped up by the end of the year.
I would agree. I think one of the cool things, though, too, is we mentioned Ganassi and having a driver, next driver, a lights driver do a test. That's what we like to see. We like the more IndyCar teams that are involved in Indy Lights, the better. And it's a natural pipeline, and it also rewards those guys that are racing for some of those teams to get some IndyCar seat time in tests. I mean, you look at Ganassi, they know what their lineup is. They don't need to be testing drivers to try to fill a seat next year. So what they can do is they can put a couple of their lights drivers in the seat and see what they can do and potentially open something up for a year or two, not just with Ganassi, but somewhere else on the grid, especially if they can have a successful season in lights next year. So it's a good opportunity, and Ganassi's making it the most of it with its drivers from last year. And now, as we know, they'll double the amount of cars, right, in Indy Lights next year to 4.
Yeah, and speaking of things doubling, well, not quite doubling, but a significant increase in the leader circle payout, which also factors into teams and their evaluation of drivers. It's going to go from $1.16 million for 2025, and it will be $1.7 million for 2026. Some of this part of the influx of cash by Fox and their partnership with IndyCar, but obviously an extra $500,000 is a pretty big deal for these leader circle entries for the teams.
It's very huge. When you break it down, 22 spots get the leader circle money, $500,000, easy math. That's $11 million an influx into the leader circle. That's not chump change for anybody, let alone IndyCar and Penske Entertainment. So kudos to Penske in really investing in the leader circle. We know that as the years have gone on, the cost has gone up to compete. Pretty soon, hopefully, these teams are going to have to buy all new chassis for a new car. And so whether this was a byproduct of the Fox sale or was already planned but maybe upped because of the Fox sale, however it came about, this is much needed. And I think it goes towards the end goal, which has kind of been hinted around once again in the mailbag this week, at least with some team owners that really want to see the health of the paddock get to a point where while there may be less full-time cars on the grid, we've heard, well, obviously with charters, there's only 25 guaranteed. So maybe that number is 25. So smaller grids, but more professional grids, as in not as many ride buyers. And the more financially secure these teams can be, the more likely that is in the future.
Marshall Pruitt saying this would be the largest year-to-year increase since the program was created back in 2002. So that's pretty big when you're looking at, a typical entry costing $6 to $8 million per year. As he points out, obviously the top end is that $8 to $10 million, some even more than that. But those teams already have this significant funding usually in place. So this helps them with whether it's driver salaries or engineering staff. But for midfield and smaller teams, $500,000 goes a long way.
I mean, it goes a long way. I feel for everybody. You look at it, the leader circle adjustment would register for 2026 as a 17% contribution to the annual budget fulfillment for a team per car being $8 to $10 million. I mean, we'd all love a 17% raise.
Right.
And that's effectively what the teams are getting with each of their cars that finishes in the leader circle. It's huge.
It is huge. And then one final thing, everyone got excited because Adam Stern had posted a story that there's interest in a downtown Cleveland street course race for 2028. That per a survey sent to local leaders seen by Sports Business Journal. But then the excitement went away rather quickly when Stern clarified and said the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission spokesperson confirmed to 3 News, which is a local news source, that if Cleveland does nab a race, the event would be staged on the streets of downtown Cleveland rather than returning to Burke Lakefront Airport. So everyone got in a tizzy, and then everyone was like, well, they don't care.
Well, they don't care because it's not going to be at the airport?
I think so.
I don't know. I mean, was the airport circuit that great in terms of race? I mean, it was cool, but look, I'm a sucker for a good airport race, but I mean, was it that good of a race?
I mean,
or does it just hold?
I think it's the same with Michigan, where it has like this incredible aura about it,
right?
And it's just one of those things in IndyCar. Like every sport, kind of has like one of those things, right?
Well, yeah,
you brought XYZ back or whatever.
It's kind of like vintage video games. Like
yes.
In your head, you have this great, or even television shows that you watched in the 90s, and you either play a game from the 90s or watch a show, and you're like, this is terrible, or this is not as good as I thought I remember. Sometimes the best things are left in the past. And to me, I know that there was a push too about, well, what would this mean for Mid-Ohio? In a perfect world, they can both be sustainable. We have Road America and Milwaukee in Wisconsin. But as IndyCar seeks bigger events and not just races, I know that the crowd has been great at Mid-Ohio, but the infrastructure and the amenities have been lacking. Could there be something, as IndyCar continues to say, we're not going above 17 races, at some point in the future, do they add Cleveland and take away Mid-Ohio? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I guess is it careful what you wish for, because you have a very successful event in Mid-Ohio, and it's only grown, I feel like, in the last decade or so.
Right.
I mean, it feels like the Graham Rahal win was almost like a watershed moment for that.
Sure, I agree.
And it's just kind of grown ever since. And now is one of the top 5 races in terms of attendance and kind of just overall vibes on the schedule, and you don't want to lose that.
The last race at the Grand Prix of Cleveland at the airport was 2007, so it's 18 years. I think with every successive year of no race in Cleveland, the legend has grown about wanting to go back.
Yes.
And I think that hides... it was a good race, but the track wasn't very popular with drivers. It was very bumpy, even on a runway, which you would think would be smooth, but it wasn't. There was a lot of carnage at turn 1, a lot. And so, I mean, it was obviously very popular with fans because of the locale and the side-by-side racing and all that stuff. But I don't know. One thing I didn't know is when it was switching allegiances between kart and IRL, the original course layout was going to be switched because, of course, IRL back in 2000 still had an all-oval schedule. It was going to be transformed into a 1.2 mile oval around the airport.
Well, yeah. So I remember Robin Miller had stories back on the old Speed Channel website that they were going to do, that oval as part of reunification or whatever, and it didn't come through, if I remember correctly.
The city said that improvements were deemed excessive and not enhancing to the airport, apparently. But look, I know there's some people who say, well, what does IndyCar need another Midwest race for? But I also say, if Mid-Ohio and a new Cleveland street race could coexist, like Road America and Milwaukee apparently can coexist, then I'm for it. Does IndyCar need to be in the Northeast? Yes. And another race in Canada? Yes. And obviously get to Mexico? Yes. But you know what? If IndyCar can add a race in Ohio to be partnered with all the other Midwestern races it has, and it's successful, then great.
Yeah, I mean they're making it work with Road America Milwaukee. So
yeah, I'm not going to complain if the sustainability for multiple events, and they would be different events too.
Yes,
because
a street course is way different from any other kind of event on the schedule. I mean, the fact that they're able to make Milwaukee and Road America work, I think is a testament to the racing fan base in Wisconsin, what the series has done. I mean, Road America draws an incredible crowd, and since the return to Milwaukee, which we had fears of it being a disaster, has been solid and could become, a staple for years to come, like it used to be back in the day.
I think when we talk about different circuits in IndyCar, it also is different experiences. You talk about road courses and how that's an entire weekend, and you bring the camper and the family and you sit under the tree in lawn chairs and you just watch cars. That's one experience. Then you go to ovals where it's more pure racers that just want to see cars go really fast and wheel to wheel and all that stuff. And there's not a lot of action over the course of the weekend, but it's pure racing. And then you go to street courses that's very much a party atmosphere, right? It's one of the many things that are going on, and you just want to bring casual fans in to enjoy a downtown. They all have different feels, and I think if Grand Prix of Cleveland has a different feel than what Mid-Ohio would be, and if they can both be successful, then that's amazing. Similar to what you said and what I've said about Road America and Milwaukee.
For sure. We shall see if anything comes of it. And then one other tidbit from the mailbag talking about street course races. Apparently the Denver race, Marshall Pruitt saying, could be delayed a bit because of the Broncos' new stadium proposal. So, of course, we think we're getting somewhere, but the Broncos stadium has affected race discussions, the new stadium plan.
And what that means, who knows, because the targeted opening time or year for what would be called Burnham Yard at this point is what the historical site is where they would build this new stadium is 2031. So does that mean IndyCar wouldn't race until effectively 2032 after the first year of the new stadium? I don't know. Who knows? Probably too early to say, but I think it's definitely something to consider. Do you want to put all this infrastructure into a race around the current stadium if in the near future it's going to be replaced?
I don't know. Where have we seen this before?
Nashville, huh?
We'll see what happens with that. Obviously, that's been talked about as a potential event set to join the schedule in 2027, but we shall see. If you agree or disagree with us, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media, IndyCar Podcast, the handle on Twitter/X, also on Instagram. On Facebook, just search for New Track Record. You can email us your questions, comments, rants, concerns, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. Mailbag time, Justin. We have several things to get to this week. We start out, Lynn_IndyCar said, my take on Mick, talking about Schumacher, we'll get the ride in the 30 car, but only the road or street courses. Oval Master Connor Daly do the ovals if he doesn't have a full-time ride. LC is based on the car, not the driver, so this can work. Interesting idea.
Potentially.
Elsewhere, we have several people talking about the Cleveland. You said street circuits are the new airport circuits. And Lynn also saying, can we see a return to Berkeley Lakefront Airport presented by Sherwin-Williams Paints, which that was the rumored title sponsor on that return. And then IMS swept in and took Sherwin-Williams as a sponsor. I don't know if you remember all that. That's what Robin Miller had said. This from PF56T2. Another Midwest race is not what IndyCar needs.
I think IndyCar needs successful events wherever they're at.
I can see the Midwest angle and bent because there are a lot of Midwest races. But look, this is a Midwest series. And look at NASCAR getting away from the Southeast. It worked at its peak, but now what are they doing? Adding more races in the Southeast. I just think it's the reality of you go where the fan base is.
Good point.
Poet Shimchenko saying, looking forward to the 500-mile race around downtown Indianapolis. They did do the, what was the road course race that they did way back in the day? Was it at IRP or?
Oh, Indianapolis Raceway Park was just the oval, right?
Well, but there was a road course race that they did. I think in
was
like
it
the
a
60s.
Street course or a road course?
I thought it was a road course.
That's a good question. Was IRP originally had a Putnam Park road course?
I don't think it's that.
I don't think that's that. I don't know.
No, but there was definitely a road course element at one time, but I think it's been quite a while. And then we got a couple of these from Ed Joris, a three-part thing. So F1 is up since the change reflecting its younger demos, as is the NFL. IndyCar. Wait, that's the last one. Okay. 1 out of 2. Okay. Here's the first one. Patience, please. NASCAR at Kansas audience was down 23% from last season, which is bad enough, but it's really a disaster. Since September 1st, Nielsen is using a new system that increases the representation of younger viewers using mobile devices. The fact that NASCAR ratings get worse when younger viewers are added to the mix is very bad. F1 is up since the change, reflecting its younger demos, as is the NFL. IndyCar and Fox need to be paying attention and planning for use of this system in 2026.
Well, like you and I were going back and forth, it's setting up to be a perfect storm for IndyCar to really make a splash on television if it can play its cards right. We know that Formula One has made tremendous strides forward. In fact, as soon as maybe this weekend, Singapore beating NASCAR, the Cup race this week. I think
it could happen by the end of the season for F1.
Very much. I mean, Vegas is still coming up, right? Mm-hmm. Which will be a night race, but it doesn't matter seemingly when Formula One races are on, people watch. What was it last week at Kansas? Down 33% from last year from Cup. Point being, Cup has problems because they have it all over the place after the first half of the year, first third of the year on Fox. They're on Amazon, they're on USA, are they still on NBC?
I don't even know. They might have a couple races on NBC.
They're all over
I'm not
the place.
sure.
Meanwhile, Formula One is going to throw away all of its momentum in the United States by going to Apple for a 5-year deal on Apple TV. That's going to kill ratings for Formula One. IndyCar is the only major series outside of Xfinity, apparently, that is going to be on regular network television. We've seen what Xfinity has been able to do on the CW, consistently getting over 1 million viewers. And now it's IndyCar's job and Fox's job to really take this series to the next level, with Cup having its struggles and now Formula One throwing away all of its momentum, going to Apple. There is nothing out there that you can inform me to convince me that Formula One is not going to see a steep drop in viewership by going to stream only. Yes, I know younger demographics are easier on the stream, that they'll find it, but there is nothing out there that tells me, or anything that we have seen in a major sport or series, going to stream only and succeeding. Just ask MLS how that has worked going to Apple.
I mean, there was an initial bump because of Messi coming over.
Yeah, it was Messi. It wasn't.
Yeah, and it was Messi. Like, I watched because I wanted to see Messi, and I'm not following it now. And the other thing is, like, with MLS, like, it's a separate package for you to view the games. Like, you have to have the Apple TV Plus subscription, plus you buy, like, the MLS season pass.
Yeah, it's
which
not,
I'm sure F1 will be similar to that, where you pay,
which is wild,
$50 or $100.
You're already going to pay $10, $11, $12 for Apple TV regular, and you're going to have to pay more to get the F1 package, similar to MLS.
Now, I think if you buy the season pass, you get Apple TV Plus. I would assume.
Still,
I'm not sure, but I would hope that they give it to you, as an add-in. But yeah, it's IndyCar, and as we've seen with Xfinity, which is, I mean, everyone made fun of CW when they got Live Golf, but that was their first foray, and then they've expanded, adding ACC football and basketball, Xfinity Series, which has done quite well. They're just going to keep adding sporting events and hope they become kind of I don't want to say go-to network for sports, but they're giving themselves an opportunity with a solid sports offering.
I think you're seeing, and this has been compared to before, is CW's trying to be like Fox was. When it got the NFL, that was huge for Fox back in 2000, maybe even sooner.
I think it was 94, 95, 96. Yeah.
I mean, it was huge. But it was picking up things here and there prior to that before it made the huge splash. I think CW is not going to be exactly like Fox. I don't know if it ever gets to a point where it is bidding on the NFL, but at the same time, it's taking strides forward as being an option for sports and conferences and series. And so it's worked with Xfinity, like you said. As Cup struggles, as F1 is going to see the apex of its popularity in the United States for the near future come at the end of this season, right? Because they're on Apple starting next year.
I mean, it's not confirmed, but yes, all signs
but all
point to it.
indications are, barring something crazy, if ESPN, would front the money. I don't blame ESPN for not paying more for it, but it's IndyCar's time. When have we ever said that? IndyCar's time to shine on network television. It's all about how they play their cards and see if they play them right.
Couple more mailbag stuff. We have Poet Shevchenko with two things. First one, catching up with last week's edition of the podcast, and you said the Freedom 100 won't come back as long as Penske is running things. He said, what if Fox decides they want the Freedom 100 on Carb Day to kick off the Indy 500 weekend? It's a great point. If Fox says, hey, we want this to return, is that a conversation?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a conversation. My pushback, too, because there's still a segment of the fandom and our viewership, our listenership, whatever the hell it is, that clamors for the Freedom 100. Do you know anybody that is no longer going to Carb Day that used to because there's no Freedom 100?
I don't think so.
Me neither. Yeah, people want to see it, but is it preventing people from going to Carb Day? I mean, this past year, it was as good of a Carb Day crowd as we've seen in a long time.
I believe it was the biggest, if I'm not mistaken.
Outside of the classic days back in the day, right?
Well, no, Carb Day wasn't a thing until like
90s.
Remember, for the longest time, Carb Day was on a Thursday.
True.
And then it really became the big event, I'm trying to think, really in the last 10 to 15 years.
I just feel like of all the people that are clamoring for the return of the Freedom 100, has Carb Day's crowds diminished to where IndyCar would have to consider bringing it back?
No.
No.
Now, you might have crowds diminish if you don't have the return of the Weenie 500.
That's very true.
But that's a separate issue for IndyCar.
But that's kind of my thing. Every time somebody mentions, the Freedom 100, is like, are you not going to Carb Day because the Freedom 100 isn't there? Are you not watching Carb Day because the Freedom 100 isn't there? No, there's not very many people like that. So if Fox wants it back, sure. But is there a big desire for the return of the Freedom 100 outside of the vocal people online? No. Because you know what? People are still showing up to Carb Day. If y'all that wanted the Freedom 100 back stop showing up to Carb Day, then maybe the series would listen. But y'all are still going.
And then this also from Poet Shevchenko. Hey, Ford, I know a race series that just adopted hybrids and will be in sync with customer demand. That came after Ford Motor CEO Jim Farley said he expects demand for all electric vehicles to be slashed in half next month. So the industry learned that partial electrification, such as hybrids, are easier for customers to accept for the time being. Yeah, largely because of the tax credit going away. In fact, it just went away at the end of September for all electric vehicles. Really? Yes. I believe it's $7,500. A pretty big deal.
It was a big chunk.
So they're big electric vehicle sales, but obviously you expect that to fall off a cliff. So that is the mailbag for this week. We get into news and notes and several things to get to. First off, some Indy Lights bit of news. This from Jaron Dimmendahl, who covers IndyCar from the Netherlands, said it looks like the Andretti Cape partnership in Lights has ended after 2 seasons, so keep that in mind. And then we also had a driver announcement as well on top of that, and that's because Seb Murray is moving from Andretti Cape to Andretti Indy next season. So it'll be one of the 4 drivers with that team. Elsewhere, some other notes. Scott McLaughlin backs Shane Van Gisbergen taking on the Indy 500. Speedcafe.com article there. I think that eventually happens.
Yeah.
I really do.
I would agree.
Alex Palo's court battle with McLaren underway. We're not going to go into details, but you can find plenty online at breach of contract dispute going on right now in the court system overseas.
What's the defense? Big argument. Well, you don't need the money back from Alex Palou because you got money from Nolan Siegel. What a defense.
I don't think that's going to fly in court. Some good news. Simon Pagenaud is one of the trio of drivers joining Cadillac F1's roster as sim drivers. I mentioned Pietro Fittipaldi, another one of those sim drivers, but really cool to see him back involved with racing and involved with the team. Just really happy for him to get another opportunity. Yes, it's not on track, but this is still a paying job and a pretty big deal in terms of being tied with an F1 team.
Yeah, anytime you can be tied to an F1 team, it gives you the possibility, so you never know. So that's good.
Good indeed. Other notes to get to. You're excited about this. The iRacing IndyCar Pro Series by Thrustmaster coming January 2026. I'm guessing it's like
I'm picturing like the Chuck Norris Total Gym type thing.
I would assume it's a racing... like sim related, like, is it like a steering wheel or?
I don't know if I want to search Thrustmaster. It is wheels, joysticks, and game pads for video games.
Okay, so spot on. But that is coming January 2026. There's a $50,000 prize pool on the line.
Remember back in the day, not quite 5 years ago, where NBC was showing, was it NBCSN showing iRacing, IndyCar iRacing during the pandemic?
I think it was streaming on YouTube. I don't think it was
on YouTube.
Yeah. But on Fox, Fox had NASCAR iRacing.
Correct. I thought there was at least one IndyCar race on NBCSN. Maybe it was the one at Indianapolis, but maybe I was wrong. But I remember watching those. I mean, we've come a long way in 5 years.
We have. We have come quite a long way. In fact, you mentioned NBCSN. Do I have some news for you?
Oh.
This coming out while we were recording. NBCSN is coming back. NBC Sports Network, back from the dead, launching later this fall, according to Austin Karp, who is with Sports Business Journal, one of Adam Stern's cohorts and colleagues. So it is back from the dead, and obviously with NBA coverage and Olympics, their Big East TV deal with college basketball, this is pretty big deal. This is a good sign.
I just hope I don't have to get that NBC Sports Gold membership.
Right? Hopefully Peacock is all you need this time around.
Let's hope.
Oh, NBC Sports Gold. That's a throwback. If you haven't been following IndyCar long enough for that, be glad that you didn't have to deal with that one.
Versus and Outdoor Network.
Well, that was Versus was
the Outdoor Network.
Really, NBC Sports Network is the Outdoor Life Network, which was only known for having the Tour de France way back in the day during the Lance Armstrong run. And then it became Versus, and then obviously NBCSN. A couple other notes to get to. Bill Pappas, IndyCar's VP of Competition and Race Engineering, has left the series. Interesting bit of news.
No details on that.
Marshall Pruitt with that story. And, okay, let's get to the fun stuff. First off, Alex Palou featured in GQ,
fancy.
magazine with the write-up. I need to read this story. But the tease is the IndyCar driver had to switch up his cardio routine after taking a spill and is baffled by America's milk-first approach to child rearing.
Riveting.
I don't know, but I'm interested to read this feature on Alex Palou. So that's the first kind of fun news.
Yeah.
More fun news. We have IndyCar featured, in fact, the Grand Prix of Arlington on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
During the pregame show, so Football Night in America, there was a big billboard as they were live in Dallas behind Jason Garrett. Tickets on sale, and there's an IndyCar in the background, IndyCar logo as well on that.
Thank you, NBC.
Yes, obviously IndyCar didn't pay for that, but,
no, but
cool.
Hey,
and then this will excite you.
Well, I think too, real quick, is it's good that their activation on site in Dallas for that. So while it doesn't pay too many dividends on television, it's good that it's front and center around Dallas Cowboy Stadium, which of course is where the race will be.
That courtesy of Who is Skid on Twitter, screenshotting that. And then this will excite you quite a bit.
Ooh, really?
Penske is selling the Chevy StarCraft conversion van that Rick Mears received for winning the 1989 Indy 500 pole. 2,600 miles on this van. It's on bringatrailer.com. In fact, it did sell. $24,500. It just sold on September 29th.
Dang it.
But this thing is awesome.
All decked out.
5.7 liter V8, 4-speed automatic transmission, white and blue paint with Indy 500 graphics, blue velour upholstery, 15-inch progressive alloy wheels, extended height roof, front and second row power adjustable captain's chairs, a flat folding third row bench, wood interior trim, Delco sound system, clean Carfax report.
Clean Carfax. This thing's one of a kind. Inside, like the wood. I presume it's real wood, like the wood decor and center
it's real
console.
wood. Yeah,
that looks amazing.
I mean, it's in pristine condition.
And that thing is just for the pole award, right? It wasn't for a win.
Correct, because obviously Emerson Fittipaldi won that year. So
looks friggin' amazing. The fog lights on the front too.
The Indy 500 logo is like on the headrests of the captain's chairs, which I have a T-shirt with that 500 logo on it, and it's so cool. Very late 80s.
And PPG logo on the front hood.
And on the back.
And on the back as well.
And it has the logo, the StarCraft, and then the 500 logo on the back for the spare wheel.
How often? What did it have a mileage?
2,600 miles. That's it.
How many of those miles do you think were actually driven by Rick Mears?
One.
Okay. For a photo op as he's driving it, and then he parked it and said, "I never want to see this thing again." Yeah,
I think that's probably about it. But that wraps up news and notes. Anything that we missed?
I do not think so. Just filling up another off-season week without any racing, and but interesting tests. You know, I don't know what was going on in Mid-Ohio,
right?
But
it's notable when we're going to break down a test because that means something actually happened.
Well, yeah, because we even refused to go over testing times here, but the fact that so many people had incidents is notable. And then the Mick Schumacher news, obviously getting his test here in a couple weeks. So hopefully we have a steady influx of news and rumors to get us through the off season as we exit September and begin October.
We made it a full month.
Yeah. Take it a month at a time here.
Tweets of the week time, and just one tweet, and it's from David Malukas. IndyCar had posted a quiz for Think You Know David Malukas. Test your fandom by taking this quiz and sharing your results. And he got 7 out of 10 correct. It said on the right track. He said, ha, 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 help, in all caps. I thought that was great. Couldn't even answer own questions about himself. It's fair. It happens.
It does. It does. All right. I get, that's some of those things where you're like, oh, I'm going to ace this. And then you take it and it doesn't turn out so well.
With that, time for our random split era driver of the week.
All right, this is a familiar name if you followed IndyCar the last 7 or 8 years, but I didn't realize he actually competed in 2007, smack towards the end of the split era, and that is Tristan Gamendi.
Ah, yes, in Champ Car, right?
Yes, Champ Car. Now, his one season in Champ Car came in 2007 with PKV Racing, which eventually came KV Racing Technologies. And in that season, 2007, Tristan Gamendi got the start for that team in the number 22, finished 12th in point standings, despite not racing at Surfers or Mexico City towards the end of the season. Also didn't race at Edmonton. His best finish was 4th at the Bavaria Champ Car Grand Prix at TT Circuit Assen. That race won by Justin Wilson. Now, this was the funky season where we really started getting crazy. They raced in Belgium that year. They raced at, a place that would be great to race with IndyCar, Quebec, right? The Mont Tremblant.
Yeah. Troy Riviere, right?
Is that Troy Riviere? I think it's different.
Think so.
I don't think the Circuit Mont Tremblant is
you're right. It is different
than Troy Riviere, yeah. So,
but did they race at Troy Riviere, right?
I think they did. I don't know if they did that season, but...
or is that the track that's in Troy Riviere, and maybe that's why I'm mixing it up?
I have no idea. I don't know what the heck we're talking. This is in Saint Jovite, Quebec. Candidate is Circuit Mont Tremblant. And I'm saying it like a proper Frenchman.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. But anyway, we'll go back to Mr. Tristan Gamendi and did San Jose race. I forgot that was a thing. The San Jose Grand Prix at Redback Raceway. Which is weird. They called it Redback Raceway, which is a temporary street circuit. They actually gave it a name. But anyway, he was one and done. Once the reunification happened, he was out of a seat. He then got into sports cars. 24-hour Le Mans. He did the 24-hour Le Mans in 2013. He then got into LMP2 and raced as recently as 2021 in European Le Mans and doing the 24 hours of Le Mans. So for those that are more recent followers of IndyCar, you remember Tristan Gamendi for the announcement that would make his Indy 500 debut with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports in 2018. It was announced on September 11, 2017 in a partnership with former Formula One team, what was it, La Rousse?
I don't remember this at all.
But the deal fell through. I don't know why. I can't remember why this was a thing.
You said this happened in 2017?
2017. It was announced on September, because I knew the name, and I'm like, I didn't follow Champ Car, so I don't know this name. Why would I know this guy? And it's because
I know his name from Champ Car, but I don't remember the story at all. Yeah. This is fairly recent.
Yes. So I'm looking up the story, and this was from Racer.com, September 11th, 2017, that Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports will partner with former Formula One entrant Didier Calmels to run France's Tristan Gamendi in the 2018 Indianapolis 500. It said Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports is in discussion with team veteran James Hinchcliffe to continue leading the program with a new multi-year contract. It would then be Gamendi would come in to race the Indianapolis 500. Something happened to where that didn't happen.
I had no clue. Wow.
Let's see if I can find a story on why it did not happen. No, I don't even see. Maybe sponsorship fell through or something. I don't know. But that's how I knew the name. But Tristan Gamendi ended up not racing in the Indianapolis 500 in 2018 or at any time. Stuck with racing in LMP2. Did some Super League Formula, which is different than Super Formula apparently. And several years doing 24-hour Le Mans. Has never won it. He finished third for Jackie Chan DC Racing in 2017 in LMP2 of the 24-hour Le Mans. So, for those familiar with Tristan Gamendi, either from Champ Car or that failed venture with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, he is this week's random split era driver of the week.
And he won the Macau Grand Prix in 2002. Very big deal.
It is a big deal.
And an update on Troy Riviere, or GP3R Circuit Troy Riviere. So it was Lights that raced there back in 2011 and 2012, and then they raced there previously as well, 96 to 98 during that time frame, and then some of the other feeder series have raced there throughout the years as well. You want to guess who won in 2012?
At Troy Riviere in Lights?
Yeah.
Townsend Bell.
No. Speaking of drivers who have had tests and maybe a sniff at IndyCar, and that's about it.
Is it a NASCAR driver?
No. Sports car driver.
Sports car driver. I have no clue.
Tristan Vautier.
He never raced in
No, he had a sniff in IndyCar.
Okay. I'm curious too with the 2018 Indianapolis 500. I'm looking at the entry list and seeing if another driver was in. I'm looking for the entry list here. Here we go.
You had Hinchcliffe and Robert Wickens, and then the third car was Jay Howard with AFS Racing.
Yeah, so that obviously fell through between September of 2017 and May of 2018, and it opened the door for Jay Howard to race with AFS Racing and Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. So there you go.
Well, that does it.
Once again, way down deep into the barrel for Random Split Era Driver of the Week info.
The best way to do it. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. Wraps up another edition of New Track Record Podcast.